Okay, so we're recording. Hi, welcome to our second Lunch and Learn series of Sex Ed for All Month. My name is Christina Clark O'Karmas. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the executive director at the Alabama Campaign for Adolescent Sexual Health. And I'm so excited to welcome a former board member and a former colleague, still a colleague in the field, Brittney Brooks. She will be our presenter for today, and she will be presenting Sex Doesn't Have to Be Scary. So I'm just going to read a little bit about her and her bio. She is a certified health education specialist and has a master's from the University of Alabama. She's a passionate health educator with 10 plus years of HIV prevention and sexual health expertise. And she's worked with public health, academic, and nonprofit settings. I knew her from back in the day when she worked at Gift of Life. She was a health educator there. I've provided some trainings that she's been part of. And I've seen her in action, and she's real great with the young people. So she has taught HIV prevention and comprehensive sex education to youth ages 11 to 24 in the classroom and community settings. And her mission is to educate and empower adolescents and young adults to make healthy decisions. Sorry, I just want to admit somebody. With her academic career and personal expertise, she has started B. Brooks and Company, LLC, a public health education and consulting agency. Her company partners with diverse clients and communities on programs that advance health and social change, specializing in public health education addressing HIV and STIs, sexual health, adolescent health, LGBTQ and minority health, and more. And as I mentioned, she has her master's and also her bachelor's from the University of Alabama, and she is a PhD candidate at University of Alabama at Birmingham, and also an adjunct professor. So she has quite the resume, but I'm going to let her show off all her skills now and turn it over to you, Brittney.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you guys for having me today. Let me first figure out, let me get the share screen. I'm not that technology savvy, so we'll make it work. So again, thank you guys for having me. I am super excited about being here today and just kind of sharing with you guys some of the knowledge that I have and some of the things that I've learned over the years of doing this work. I know you guys are, kind of on your lunch break, so I don't want to take up a lot of your time. So we will go ahead and just kind of get started. Again, just want to talk to you guys a little bit about just sex ed, I'm assuming everybody here is a youth serving professional. You work with youth in some capacity or another. And so just kind of giving a quick, sex education overview, and then just going into just some tips, some things that I've learned over the years when talking with our adolescents. Can you guys see my screen?
I can. If anybody else wants to give just a thumbs up.
It just went away, but I was able to before.
Oh, okay, yeah, so it just went away, but I was able to see it a minute ago.
Okay, so let's go back in. Sorry.
That's okay.
As I've said, not my thing.
And Brittney, if you want to send it to me, you can, and I can share my screen.
Okay.
If that makes more sense for you.
Okay, can you guys see?
Yep, it's back.
Yeah, that works.
That little box. Yep, perfect.
Okay. So again, I am Brittney Brooks. And so Christina did do, just kind of talk to you guys, do a quick bio. So just a little more, just quick information. So I am a health educator. I've been doing this work for about 10 years. I think I'm actually coming up on my 10th year. I started off in Montgomery. Christina actually trained me, initially started doing this work, and I've been doing it ever since. Sexual health, HIV prevention. Mainly I've worked with youth and adolescents pretty much the entire time I've been doing this work. Right now I am a fourth year PhD student. I am hopeful that this is my last year. And so all of my work and research that I do is in the HIV prevention or sexual health in that area. Then I also teach adjunct at Calhoun. I taught adjunct at the University of Alabama for a couple semesters prior to the pandemic. And then I kind of just here, I am based in Huntsville. I don't know if I said that earlier, but I am based in Huntsville. And so again, I am, pretty much self-employed. Most of the work that I do for the last year, I've been working on a statewide jurisdictional ending the HIV epidemic plan. There's a big initiative from the CDC to, end the HIV epidemic by 2030. And so I've been working with a nonprofit here, Alabama Partners for Health, as well as the state health department in kind of moving that initiative and making that happen. So this is just a outline of just some of the things that we will discuss. I'm sorry, can y'all see? I'm sorry.
There you go. Yeah, I can see it again.
Okay. So this is just some of the things that we'll talk about. We're going to define sexual health and sexual health education. We'll kind of do a quick overview of puberty, sex, contraception, STIs. We'll dispel some of those myths. And then we're going to end it with just kind of giving you guys just some tips and tools to use when you're implementing your sex ed or talking to your kids, your youth about sex ed, just some things that I've learned that I want to kind of just share with you guys. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So I kind of want to briefly start, if you guys don't mind. I kind of just want to know what capacity you guys work in. So just really brief introductions. I can see your names, but just, your name, your organization, and just what capacity like you work in with youth. I just want to know if we have teachers or, people from the community. I just kind of want to know who we have. So if we can just do quick introductions and then we'll kind of get started.
Hi.
So anyone? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Brittney as well. I actually am an intern at the Alabama campaign. I don't work directly with youth, but I would love to in the future and just kind of want to take advantage of the educational opportunity.
I'm Megan. I am a graduate teaching assistant in the Gender and Race Studies program at UA, and I'm teaching women's studies in the fall, and definitely want to teach like sex ed after I get my master's. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Nadia. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the program coordinator for the Alabama Campaign for Adolescent Sexual Health. So I work with Christina and Brittney.
Hello. Go ahead.
I'm Barbara, Five Horizons Health Services, a nonprofit HIV organization.
I was just going to read Heather Tucker's, because a couple of folks maybe don't have microphone access. So Heather Tucker teaches health science at Austin High School at Decatur. And then Jessica Chambliss is an assistant professor at UAB School of Public Health, previously worked at Mobile County Health Department in this area. And then if anybody else wants to continue.
Hey, I'm Ray Morrell. I work with a community-based program called Second Chance. We do domestic violence and sexual assault services, and I'm the prevention educator, so I do work directly with the youth.
Okay, is that everybody? Because I can't see the full.
Looks like that's almost everyone. I think if there's anyone else that wanted to speak, go ahead. I think that's probably everyone.
Okay, and so you guys can see the PowerPoint, correct?
Yes.
The presentation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So kind of just starting off with what is sexual health. We talk about sexual health and everything that it encompasses, but it's way more than just avoiding disease and unplanned pregnancy. I know a lot of times people kind of steer away from talking about, sexual health because it's only, they feel like it's only talking about unplanned pregnancies or even just sex or avoiding diseases when, sexual health, sexuality starts at childhood, even starting with, talking about body parts and puberty. That's the start of it. It does not have to start at, talking about, unplanned pregnancies or, things of that sort. Sexual health is the ability to embrace and enjoy our sexuality throughout our lives. So again, sexuality spans not just, in adulthood, it starts, at our youth, and it goes through our entire, lives. It's an important part of our physical and emotional health. Understanding that sexuality is a natural part of life and involves more than sexual behaviors. Again, I can't express that enough, how we need to normalize talking about sex. And then just recognizing and respecting the sexual rights that we all share, and making an effort to prevent unintended pregnancies and STDs and seek care and treatment whenever needed. And lastly, being able to experience sexual pleasure, satisfaction, and intimacy within a healthy relationship. So we're going to just take a few minutes to kind of just do some brainstorming and maybe come up with our own definition of sex ed or sexuality education, just kind of based off of just what we already know. And we can maybe use the chat box, or we can just communicate, maybe everybody unmute. However, but maybe just kind of take a few minutes just to maybe even throw out some words that maybe we feel like should be included in a sexual, sex education definition, or if you have your definition, your own, let's kind of talk about it. And then next we're going to look at the definition that are already out there and just kind of compare ours to what's already out there. So we'll take about 5 to 10 minutes just to do that. And let me get my chat box working. Okay.
So I'll start off and I'll say holistic is one word that comes to mind when I think of sexuality education that I would want to see.
Okay. And so I think I'll just type these words in the text box. And also just if there are words that you have, throw them out, you can type them or just kind of shout them out.
Maybe inclusive.
Yeah, that was my word. Healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Something about like recognizing your own self autonomy and self-determination and self-autonomy in others.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to call that? Maybe not self-efficacy.
I don't know if there's like a good word for it, but maybe like removing taboos.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely.
And I think, we talk a lot at the campaign about working with sort of the facts and medical facts, medically accurate, and removing sort of the shame and bias.
Definitely factual, medically accurate, definitely. And we'll actually get into a little bit of that throughout the presentation. So I think those are all pretty good words, and we can kind of just move forward and look at what's already out there. So these are just some definitions. The first one definitely comes from WHO, which is the World Health Organization. And I'll just go ahead and read it. Sexual health is a state of physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being in relation to sexuality. It is not merely the absence of disease, dysfunction, or infirmity. Sexual health requires a positive and respectful approach to sexuality and sexual relationships, as well as the possibility of having pleasurable and safe sexual experiences free of coercion, discrimination, and violence. Another one, sex ed, the last one is defined as teaching about human sexuality, including intimate relationships, human sexual anatomy, sexual reproduction, sexual transmitted infection, sexual activity, sexual orientation, gender identity, abstinence, contraception, and reproductive rights and responsibilities. So you guys kind of see how the definition is just not, talking about just avoiding an unplanned pregnancy or STDs. It does include like your mental, physical, like your whole self. Sexuality is not just, just behaviors. Any questions so far? So again, just some quick kind of points I like to make when it comes to sexual health education. I think like we were saying, Christina was saying, it should be informed by evidence. I do have that in bold. So when we're talking to our youth or our young people, make sure that the information that we give them is backed up by evidence. And, that we have researchers who, work in the field to do that type of thing. And what works best to prevent unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted infection, but it should also respect young people's rights to complete and honest information. So we should be giving them complete and honest information, regardless of how we feel personally. We want to make sure that we are giving them honest information. Sex education should treat sexual development as a normal, natural part of human development. Again, that's one of the reasons why I feel like sex ed is such a taboo topic, because it's not, it's not normalized. It's not part of our everyday conversation. And I feel like it should be, because sex, it starts, at birth, all the way through adulthood. And just remembering that the overall goal of sexual health education is to provide young people with the knowledge and the skills that they need to kind of promote their own well-being, their health and well-being, and just so that they can make those sexually healthy decisions into adulthood. And sex ed does take place in schools. It can take place at home, just anywhere. There's no particular avenue or venue. Sex ed happens, any and everywhere. Another point that I like to make, and I really want to stress this point, which is why my clip here, I want to shout to the world that sex ed does not encourage children and young people to have sex. Let me say it again. Sex ed does not encourage children or young people to have sex. And so my take on this is that at some point, young people are going to have sex, whether, they have it as a teenager, as an adult, premarital, it doesn't matter. They're going to have sex. And so we need to equip them and make sure that they have the tools they need to kind of make healthy decisions to protect themselves from, an unplanned pregnancy or STIs, or even just, when we talk about healthy relationships and consent, all of that is important in sex ed. Again, it's not just talking about behaviors and, using condoms and, taking birth control. So we'll start just kind of with a quick overview of puberty. This always, whenever I'm doing a presentation or speaking with youth and I literally say the word puberty, they just start laughing. I don't know if you guys have that experience, especially if you work with like the younger youth, maybe middle school age. When we start talking about puberty, penises, vaginas, like all of that good stuff, they literally giggle and laugh, and that's fine. But, it is normal, it is natural, and, letting them know that they will all experience puberty at their own time. And so what I want to do is just kind of do a quick video. I think the video is about 2 minutes, just a quick overview for us of what puberty is and what adolescents or, young kids go through once they are starting that puberty stage. So let's see if the video plays.
Just can't hear it. I can see it.
You said you can't hear it?
That's the only, yeah, I can't hear it. You try turning it up on your computer?
Yeah, it's up.
So
is it like it's muted or is it really low?
Play it one more time and I can try to tell you.
Okay.
Oh, I can kind of hear it.
I wonder if it's with the, Like it's really loud. The volume is maxed on both the YouTube and my computer. And you still can't hear it?
I can hear it, but it's really garbled. Let me see if I can find it and maybe share it from mine. I don't know if that'll help, but what's it called? That's puberty part short one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. All right, let me try to share my screen.
Okay. Well, should I stop share?
I can do it. I can do it from my end.
Okay.
Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try to, let me see. Can you hear it? No,
I still can't hear it.
I don't know what that's about.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, sure. But we can skip through it. I can actually just kind of talk my way through it. It's okay.
And I'll put the link in the chat so that folks can watch it on their own time or after we're done here.
Okay, not a problem. We'll continue. So again, that video was just a quick overview of kind of puberty, just kind of talked about the developmental stages. And remember, puberty is a result of our, genes and hormones, and, just letting, okay. But just letting, our adolescents, our youth know that, puberty is natural, normal. Everybody will experience puberty at some point. And so just kind of talking about the differences of what happens when a girl goes through puberty and when a boy goes through puberty again. So with this, I'm just doing a quick overview. I don't think we have enough time to just do like the in-depth, puberty talk. So I think, if you want more information, I think there's like things that you can look up on your own. I think maybe Christina, they may offer some trainings, and eventually in the near future, I may as well. But just know that, the sex organs for females start to grow. That's when menstruation begins. Their breasts start to change, so their breast starts to grow. They will experience vaginal discharge. Also, if you are having the puberty conversation with your females or with any of your youth, especially with your females, when we talk about discharge, just kind of letting them know that discharge is normal. There are different types of discharge. Again, this can be a completely different webinar, but just letting them know that, a white, cloudy white, clear type discharge is normal, but when there's a smell or there's, yellow or greenish color, then there could be a sign of an infection, or an STI, but definitely just kind of letting them know that a discharge is normal. And I say that because I get so many questions about, especially my adolescent girls, about discharge, and I kind of have to educate them, let them know that that's normal. So I just wanted to throw that out there while I was kind of on the subject. And then body hair, they will grow hair, underarms, on their legs, even like their upper lip. Of course, they will grow pubic hair, and just letting them know again that these things are completely normal. Everybody will experience puberty at a different time, and everybody won't go through puberty the same way. Some girls will grow breasts, some girls may not grow breasts. Some girls will probably start their cycle at 13, some may start at 16. So it's just different for everybody. Again, so with guys, these are some of the things that they go through during their puberty stage. One of the big ones is their voice changes. I don't know if you guys kind of know, like when a guy or boy is going through puberty, kind of they get that cracky voice, that high pitch. So that's one of the signs that their voices is changing. They're going through puberty and their voice starts to change. They will experience wet dreams. Guys will ejaculate during their sleep and wake up in the morning with wet sheets. So again, just letting them know that that is completely normal. And then involuntary erections. During puberty, boys will have spontaneous erections. Again, letting them know that that's normal. They're not, weird or different if they experience these things. Okay, so let's talk about sex. So now that we kind of talked about puberty, we can just kind of talk a bit more about just kind of like sex and, why kids choose to have sex.
Hey,
and so,
Brittney, sorry, I just wanted to ask a real quick question about puberty.
Yes.
So in your experience as a classroom educator, are you finding so in the language that you're using about girls and boys, are you beginning to think about talking more about body parts versus gender, and is that resonating with your young people? I'm just curious, I know that we try to do that a lot at the campaign, especially in our trainings. And I think I want all adults to know about that information about gender and body parts to not always match the gender that someone identifies with. But is that resonating with young people in the classroom? I'm curious.
I think so. Now, Christine, I will say I have not been directly in the classroom for, I do here and there, but just not how I used to be. But from what I know, yes, just because, now our youth are kind of more open and they are aware of, everything isn't, boy, girl, or, male, female. So I definitely think that educators are more inclined to steer away from the male, female, and just kind of, the body parts. But again, I haven't been in the classroom doing education. So I'm not sure exactly how the students are responding to that, but I definitely am hoping that the educators are trained to deliver it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if they, if there was any sort of reaction when we talk about, okay, so if you have a penis, then this, these may be some things that happen with you. And if you have a vagina, these may be, and I just was curious if there was any reaction to that. But thanks. I understand that you haven't been there for a little bit. So I was just.
Although I miss it.
I know, I'm sure you do. You're so good at it too.
So again, just, we are all created by sex. It shouldn't be an embarrassing or a taboo subject to talk about. And just I'll wait. So what we're going to do now is just kind of brainstorm some reasons that maybe that you know of, some reasons that you've heard, especially for those who work with youth. Just why are you engaging in sex? Like, what are some reasons that you hear or overhear that, as to why they have sex? So let's brainstorm and kind of talk about that for a few minutes. And then on the next slide, I have some of the top reasons that I found, and even some of the reasons over the years I've been doing this work, some things that I've heard youth say. So have you guys, from your experience, what are some things that you've heard them say or reasons why they choose to engage in sex?
Well, it feels good.
Mm-hmm. Any others?
I haven't worked directly with kids and asking them this way, but I would imagine social acceptance from either their peers or their partners, thinking that that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yep, that is actually on my list. Yep.
My friends are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes, and I think as adults we know this from the data, but there's this perception that everyone's doing it. even though we know from the data that not everyone is doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually have, I think everything that you guys said. Oh, I got fancy for a second. So again, just some of the reasons just from my research, and again, just talking with youth and being an educator in the classroom and in the community. You know, for guys, the more partners I have, the more masculine I become. You know, want to try out sex before marriage, sex as proof of being an adult. It's not good to be a virgin. You know, that's one of those peer, I guess I would call them peer norms. You know, they think everyone is having sex. So those two, sex will make a man love you more. I've seen that, or even heard that with just kind of those, you know, relationships, middle school, high school, I've experienced just youth, especially the girls having sex with guys just to, you know, feel love or thinking that that will, you know, make the guy love them. And when you have sex, a man will eventually marry you. And then, of course, you know, sex education. Some kids are not getting any sex education, like, you know, none.
Yeah, they know what sex is just because, like, they've seen it or they've heard of it, but they don't, you know anything really about what might happen if you engage in sexual activities.
Exactly. So again, a really quick overview of contraception. Again, we can spend just an hour alone talking about this, but there are, you know, your barrier methods, your hormonal methods. You have an IUD. There's one that is hormonal and non-hormonal. You have your behavior methods, which are basically withdrawing, pulling out, that I don't suggest if you're trying to, you know, if you're not planning, don't want to get pregnant, I'll say. And then some people even track like their fertile days. So, you know, those are like behavioral type methods. And then, you know, all of our for other birth control methods here. So when we talk about barrier methods, we're talking about the condom, male and female condom. Have you guys ever seen or heard of a female condom? I know you have, Christina. Or even knew that that was a thing?
I've seen them before, like, but not often. I don't think I've ever seen them in stores.
Okay. Yeah. And then we talk, you have your pill, your injection, which is a shot, the patch, the ring, the diaphragm. So again, if you just want to take a second to look at the chart over to my right, you can kind of see just kind of how they all work. And then that number, the percentage at the bottom, is showing the number out of every 100 who do experience an unintended pregnancy. So it kind of goes up to what's more effective. And at the bottom are those methods that are least effective. And I do have this available. You can also like just kind of do a quick Google, but if you guys want this, I can get this out to you guys as well. Are there any questions about the contraceptive methods? Okay, and so just a point, you know, when we're talking to our youth about contraception, just making sure that we don't, like we're not putting our own personal opinions or biases out towards them. So for example, even when I think of kids, you know, menstruation and using a tampon, and how there are some older adults that feel like, you know, teen girls, shouldn't use a tampon because, it could break their hymen, or if they're a virgin, they shouldn't use, like, just all this crazy stuff. So if you're teen or youth or whoever, if they are wanting, to, use whatever method of birth control, or, use a tampon for their method of menstruation, then our job is just to educate them on that method. We're not here to say, well, you shouldn't use that, or this is not for you. Our job is just to educate them on, give them that medically accurate information. I always say, when we're educating, I'm not here, even in this capacity. When I'm doing sex ed, I'm here to give you information. I'm not here to try to be your morals and values teacher. You know, if you express that, you know, if you have interest and you're 15 and say, you know, you want to know how to use a condom, I'm going to give you the resources to, you know, give you that information. I'm not going to say, well, I don't think you should be having sex. I just think we should stay, you know, steer away from that. Because if they're expressing interest in sex, then we need to educate them.
Well, on the other hand, too, Brittney, I would just add that, you know, the reverse of that is we're not assuming that anyone is engaging in sexual activity either.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
They may or may not, but they still have a right to this information.
That is right. And so just a quick overview on STIs. This can be a whole nother presentation in itself. But, you know, there are, once, you know, kids start engaging in sex, then, you know, they do run the risk, or unprotected sex, of pregnancy or sexually transmitted diseases. So, you know, you have your viral STDs, you have your bacterial STDs. And this is just a list of the most common sexually transmitted infections. We do know that bacterial STDs can be cured if they're treated and caught early, and viral STDs can be treated but not cured. And so there are many, you know, STDs that you can get when you engage in unprotected sex. So again, when we're talking to our youth about, you know, STIs, just giving them the information, the facts, you know, this is what happens. These are, you know, some of the results of what can happen to if you have unprotected sex. Some can be cured, some cannot. Again, this is just a quick overview. This can be a whole, you know, hour presentation, just getting into all the detail about STIs. But I do want to just take a minute to kind of just dispel some of the myths that we've heard about STIs, or that you are kind of saying. I've heard so many inaccurate things about STIs from y'all. I tried to remember just some of the stories I've heard over the years. And so I just kind of want to dispel some of just the main ones that we kind of hear repeatedly, and that I feel like is most important for our youth to know. And so the first one, you know, only quote unquote trashy people get STDs. We know that that's not true. STDs don't discriminate. You know, it only takes one time. You know, I've heard students or youth say, well, you know, I only have, you know, one partner, or, you know, I don't engage in this behavior, I don't do this, so I can't get an STD. Well, you know, that's not the case. It does not matter your race, your age. It does not matter if you engage in risky behaviors, and you're putting yourself, you know, at risk for getting an STD. So just making sure that they know that, you know, there's not a certain look, you know, to contract an STD. It does not matter. They don't discriminate at all. If your partner has an STD, you will see it. So there's no sign. A lot of times there are no symptoms that a person has an STD. Most of the time there are no symptoms. So making sure that we let our youth know, especially for a lot of times I hear the guys, well, I only have sex with, you know, the pretty girls or the clean girls. Well, no. I mean, this is not the case. A lot of times, you know, you can't look at a person and tell whether they have an STD or not. And, you know, a lot of times you won't see there are no symptoms for a lot of those STDs, gonorrhea, chlamydia. A lot of times there are no symptoms. And if they come, they'll come later on. Another one is you can avoid STIs or STDs by having oral or anal sex. We know that that's not the case. Where there's sex, then there can be, you know, the possibility of getting an STI. And then once you've had an STD, there's no chance of getting it again. Again, we know that that's not true. You can get an STD more than once. You can have more than one STD at one time. So just making sure that we, you know, are giving them correct factual information, because I'm not sure where these kids are getting their information from these days. But a lot of it, you know, from their friends, or probably from, you know, TV. And so right here, we just kind of want to talk about some of the benefits of sex ed, just kind of why it's important. And so you guys, I won't read them all, just kind of look over, but I feel like these are some of the top reasons or the top benefits of sex ed. I'm just trying to keep a watch out on the time. Are there any questions so far? And we'll have time at the end. And so here's our impacts of sex ed. So when we talk about impact, we're actually talking about like behavior change, like actual seeing, just behaviors change. So, good quality sex ed that's, implemented, it can delay initiation of sex, reduce frequency of unprotected sex, reduce number of sexual partners, and increase use of protection against unintended pregnancies and STIs. So there are impacts to sex ed programs. So I kind of just want to spend the rest of the time just talking about some things that, these are kind of just like my top tips. I think it's about 10 of them that I've just learned over the years of doing this work that I want to share with you guys. The very first one is just respect for others. Respecting your students' opinions, respecting where they are, everyone, just because they are a youth or a teenager or whatever, doesn't mean that, they don't know when it comes to sex ed. They may be more knowledgeable about certain things than sometimes we are. And I've learned that over the years. The second one is to create an atmosphere of trust in which students can be themselves. So for me, this is very, very important. I always try to create an environment where kids are feel free to ask questions, because at the end of the day, when we're doing sex ed, we know that it's a taboo topic, but you want kids to be able to express themselves the way that they can. So for an example, when I was doing a lot of sex education, going into classrooms, you kind of have to meet the kids where they are. And a lot of times they don't know the correct terminology for certain words. And I'm not going to shame you for not knowing that the correct word is penis or that the correct word is vagina. I will correct you and say, we're in a learning environment and, so we're going to use the word penis. But when you're with your friends, it's okay to use slang, but I'm just going to educate you on the correct word. So just meeting them where they are. I've just been in sessions where students, they just kind of talk freely, and I want them to be able to be open and free. But again, I'm an educator, so I want to make sure that, they are using the correct terminology when, even talk just about body parts. So the third one is being sensitive toward the attitudes, values, and feelings of others. So not all youth will share our values, the values that we have, and that's completely okay. But just kind of be respectful and sensitive towards others' values and feelings. Communicate with warmth. So when we're talking about sex ed, it's already such a taboo topic, and kids don't like to open up and share, especially if they feel like, they can't trust you or, they don't have that relationship with you. So I just say, just talk with them, don't talk at them, don't lecture them, just be warm, be sincere. They'll pick up on, they definitely pick up on that if you're sincere about what you're saying. And, they'll pick up on if you care or not. Don't be afraid to express discomfort. If there's a topic that you're talking about and you're not comfortable, I'm not going to say, I'm kind of up and down with this one, because I definitely feel like if, you're teaching sex ed, you shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about it. I feel like you're doing a disservice if you're not comfortable talking about sex ed. So that one, I'm kind of up in the air, but I know sometimes you have to. I know as teachers in the school, sometimes, that you have to, and it's okay if you're uncomfortable talking about certain topics. And then listen carefully to what your students, your questions, their concerns and worries. So I always a lot of times they don't know how to express themselves or articulate what they're really trying to say. So I always like to get to the bottom of the question that they're asking. So I either do that by, just saying, let's talk at the end of class, or I always offer a question box if they don't want, that one-on-one, and they want to be more anonymous. I do offer that question box, but definitely get down to the root of their concern. I've even held sessions where it was strictly a Q&A session, you know, because I know that they have questions and I want to answer those questions completely and honestly. You know, I don't want to spend a whole presentation of, you know, the whole time going over HIV and what it is. You know, they have questions and I want to answer those questions. And I do try to create a safe, warm space. And I've, you know, built relationships with, you know, students where they've been able to open up to me. And I'll kind of talk about that in just a second. I'm sorry, I went back too far. Okay. So again, keeping an open mind. Not all students or kids will share our same experiences. You know, they go through things just like we, and I've learned that over the years that, you know, outside of school, you know, kids have home lives and sometimes they don't have the best home lives. So just kind of keeping an open mind. Even just respecting the privacy. So again, that's where anonymous question box, or if they feel okay to confide in you, you know, then that's a good thing. Like you want to build those relationships with your youth where they can confide in you about certain things. I've had, you know, so many students to confide in me and ask questions, things that they didn't feel comfortable, you know, asking their parents, is because I created that environment just initially where it was a safe space. And you want to create that when you're talking about sex ed, because these kids are getting information from their friends and cousins and older siblings. It's just not the correct information. So, you know, as adults, you know, working in this field, we want to make sure that, you know, we are answering, respecting their privacy. And then next to answering questions, honestly, again, don't avoid answering questions because you don't feel comfortable. We're supposed to, you know, our goal is to answer the questions with medically accurate information. And that's what we, you know, we should be doing. Avoid criticizing students' opinions. Again, I can't begin to tell y'all the stories. I've sat in classrooms where, you know, teachers, if I'm, you know, I'm coming in to do sex ed, you know, in a classroom, and, you know, their normal teacher, if it's the PE teacher, the science teacher, whoever, and we're talking about HIV, and the teacher's just, well, they shouldn't be doing this, and, you know, that's a gay disease, and it's like, don't do that. Don't be that person. Because that's not helping. That's not helping anything, because if they have questions about it, then there's a reason why they have questions about it. So don't, you know, project your own personal opinions and attitudes, you know, on your students or your youth as you're, you know, talking about sexual health and sex ed, because they may not all share the same values as you. You know, you've got to think about different cultures, and you got to, you know, think about all of that when you are implementing any kind of sex ed or teaching sex ed. And then be capable of discretion should students decide to confide in you. Again, students have confided in me, and there were a couple times that I actually had to report a couple things. So just kind of use discretion, because if you build that relationship with students, and they're gonna open up to you about things that, you know, that's been on their mind, or things that they went through. And so just kind of use discretion as the adult. And another tip for me, I found to be really effective, and if you guys have that option, is to separate your boys and your girls when you are doing the teaching sex ed, just because the environment is more controlled. You get a chance to only teach the necessary information. Not saying that we'll take puberty, for example, not saying I do feel like girls as well need to know what goes on with guys when they're going through puberty, but you can kind of hone in and focus more so they'll know what's going on with their bodies as well. And then it's kind of less awkward for kids. I know they don't like to ask questions in front of the opposite sex. My personal preference, I love educating with boys. Boys are open. They will literally tell you everything. So boys, if you have that option, definitely separate your boys from your girls, just because, again, the environment is a little bit more controlled. Are there any questions? I think this is pretty much the end. I hate that my video didn't play, but I'm looking at the time. We have about 7 minutes left for questions. And I'm gonna check the chat box as well.
So what is your experience? Because we kind of advocate at the campaign for doing mixed gender classes. And so I'm curious from a health educator's perspective, why they might prefer one or over the other. And so I guess, can you say more about your experience teaching like mixed gender and why you prefer a single gender over mixed?
So I'll say, let me go back. I prefer when we're dealing with the younger, maybe like middle school and younger, just because at that age, they're real, just giggly and everything is funny. And they're just not as open, as free, and just everything is like fun and games with them. So definitely now, our older, high school and on up, I think they can handle being in the same space. But just if you're on a time, there's you have an hour, you're going to spend about 20 minutes getting over just like them laughing at saying the word penis or saying the word vagina or sex, or so that's just my experience. But I definitely see the importance of mixing the genders. I definitely see the importance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious. I have other questions, but I want to give other people a chance to talk.
Yes, and I actually, so I was going to do a resource page for you guys, but all the resources I have are the same probably resources that are available on the campaign's website. So yeah, you guys, any resources, I see Amaze that was actually on my list, ACT, those are our resources that were on my list. So if you guys can actually just visit the campaigns page, and there are a lot of resources just to kind of go over this information again and just kind of give you some more tips and tools for talking with your youth about sex ed. I really enjoy this work. I hate that I'm not in the field like doing education as much as I used to. But this is great work. This is really great work and needed work.
Well, and I think we need folks like you to you're so good at being a classroom facilitator, and you have to be able to pass on those skills too, because there's only one of you, but you can raise up like the next group of health educators, of sexual health educators through this work. I just shared the campaign's resource page if anyone wants to check that out. I had another question and it's slipped. Oh, I know. So I know that you've taught some evidence-based programs that are really sort of prescriptive and like, here's what you should say, here's the exact activity you do. And then I'm curious, have you done more of like just general sex ed content? And which do you think is better received by young people? Which do you prefer as a facilitator? I'm just curious about your anecdotal experience.
So I do feel like, I've facilitated, several, or I'm trained on several of the curriculums. So I do feel like going into classrooms or teaching sex ed should be more than just a one-time thing. I definitely feel like there should be sessions. They can't get everything they need in just one session, because you have to be able to, learn the information, then apply it, build on the skills. And, so I definitely kind of prefer those curriculums just because they're able to build on the skills.
Yeah.
So far, what I've done is just kind of, and actually what I'm working on is sessions, like, doing maybe quarterly sessions in the community, even working with the schools. But I do feel like just going in one time is not effective. It's not effective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would be curious to know, like, I'm sure there's research out there, but so like specifically with your work in HIV, I know in Alabama, a lot of schools will, to meet that HIV mandate requirement, they'll just bring in like a one-time speaker once a year. And I'd be so curious to know, like, are young people, like, what percentage of young people does that even stick with? Are we just really truly just checking a box? Because it's not, I mean, the likelihood, I can't imagine that, you know, more than 25% of the students are really, it's having an impact on them. It's probably less than that, you know?
And that's exactly what they're doing. You know, with when I worked with Thrive, that was typically what we did. Teachers called us to come in and do their HIV education. I went in for a session and that was it. Now I will say, because I went, it was me doing the educating. No, I'm playing, but yeah, so I don't think
no, you're probably right. It might have been more effective for sure, but yeah, still, it's just that one-off.
Yeah, like I literally trust myself and myself only to educate our youth. Like I'm the only one that's going to give them what they need.
Yeah. But well, and that's why we need you to pass on that expertise.
But I definitely agree with you. Just going in that one time is not effective. Like, because you have to build. You have to, once you get the information, you have to build on, use the skills, build on them, be able to practice. So, no. It's not effective. I don't think that one time thing. So, and then there's not, you know, I don't know if they're still doing that in Montgomery, but no one's going into the schools doing any comprehensive type sex ed. So kids are just they're not getting this information. They're not getting.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to even the whole state, because there's no system in place for us to know everywhere what's being taught, if things are being taught. I can only speak anecdotally, and I would love for us to know, like, more specifically know, like, what's being taught where. Are you using a curriculum? Are you just bringing a guest speaker in? What does it look like? I would love for the campaign to be able to gather some data on that for sure, because that's you know, step one in figuring out, like, okay, what's the problem here?
Yeah, it's definitely those going in like at that one time, because I've done even that with a lot of organizations, not just schools, even community-based organizations. They just want somebody to come in this one time and that's it. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm working on with my company, is just kind of, you know, getting out in the community as well as schools and doing the education, because no one here in Huntsville is providing comprehensive sex ed that I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know of anyone here in Montgomery right now either. I know that there's a Medicaid group that I believe is doing some programming, Making Proud Choices, which is it's not a comprehensive, but it's a safer sex evidence-based curriculum. And they're doing it in some high schools, I think, but even that's not, you know, it's not like all the high schools in Montgomery are getting that.
Yeah, because even my networks from, you know, the people that I know in Birmingham, like some of the ASOs, they're same thing in the schools, just doing that one time thing. So To be honest, I don't know who's doing anything, you know, just on the comprehensive side.
Yeah, so throw it in the chat if any of you educators know, you know, of a school, or you have a colleague, or maybe even in your own school where y'all are doing something that's more annual and incorporating it more routinely through the health curriculum. I just wanted to read Heather Tucker's comment. Heather said that, you know, in using appropriate terminology about anatomy, they find that it actually makes students feel more comfortable asking questions, because they feel like it's more educational and less social. So that's an interesting point too. I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, like if we're talking more like you might in a doctor's office than you would at recess, or that's probably, you probably don't have recess. And I know you don't have recess in like middle and high school, but you know, at the lunch table, then yeah, it might be more beneficial in the education setting for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay, so we're at our time. Is there any last words of wisdom you wanted to leave us?
I don't. Just as you guys are just doing your work, just make sure that, you know, you're not just educating, but you're also advocates for our youth. Like, just kind of remember that tidbit.
Yes, and thank you so much. Heather, I'm going to send you an email because I just read your comment and I'd love to chat more about what you're doing at your school. Thank you everyone so much for being here. This was recorded so I can send that out to y'all. And Brittney, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And I'm just so happy that we were able to do this today.
Yes, I'm glad too. Thank you. Thank you guys for all attending and taking time out of your lunch break to listen to me.
Yes, yes. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks. Bye.